Mystery in the moonlight. Mystery in the moonlight. Focus question. How do Nico and Isabel's ideas about their neighborhood change during the book? Chapter 1. Nico and Isabel Lopez were twins, but other than being born on the same day, they were almost nothing alike. They were fraternal twins, not identical twins. Nico was solidly built and handsome, with a mane of curly hair like his father's. Isabel was smaller, with striking green eyes, a sprinkle of freckles on her nose, and long straight hair like her mother's. Since the day they were born, Nico had been the thoughtful, quiet one, while Isabel spun their world with adventure and mischief. They were as different as night and day, but their personalities complemented each other's perfectly. They made friends easily, but like most twins, they remained closest to each other. It had been a long, full summer in their neighborhood. Grady and Jessica Peterson, the twins' good friends who lived up the street, had built a huge tree house in their yard. Almost everyone on the block had slept over at least once, eating s'mores and telling stories late into the warm night. The scarier and the better. Which their tree house, Grady and Jessica had been the center of attention that summer for sure. Most kids, Nico and Isabel included, were now hatching plots to get their parents to build tree houses too. The only other big news was that the house across the street, the one that had been vacant since last spring, had finally sold. A new family had moved in. The Mr. Lopez had heard from the real estate and agency that they were named Bradford and that they had a 10-year-old son named Andrew. This was great, except that no one had gotten so much as a glimpse of him. In fact, the whole Bradford family seemed absolutely invisible. One afternoon, Isabel and Nico were playing in their front yard when an enormous truck from the Rapparee's eggs pulled up in front of the Bradford's house. The twins tried to be casual about glancing over at the house while workers readied every window treatment, putting up both blinds and drapes. Once they were done, not a thing could be seen inside. I guess they like their privacy, Nico said. That's strange, Isabel said. I was hoping to meet the boy who lives there, maybe play some kickball, but I've never seen him at all. Isabel was good to kickball and never missed an opportunity to recruit fresh players. Nico chuckled, not knowing how frustrating it must be for Isabel not to be able to make friends right away. I think there's something odd about that family, she said. Chapter 2. Another night, when the moon was full, Isabel quietly but urgently knocked at Nico's bedroom door. Isabel, it's late. What's up with you? Nico asked. Isabel had her binoculars in her hand, and she climbed on Nico's bed to peek out his window. Shh! Andrew Bradford is outside, Isabel whispered. Nico peered through the binoculars and saw Andrew Bradford climbing the old oak tree in the Bradford's yard. This certainly seems like a funny time to be out climbing trees, if you ask me, Isabel said. Nico looked around the yard and saw Andrew's parents sitting at the peto table, happily playing cards by moonlight. Isabel looked very intent and a little mysterious. Don't you think it's strange that the Bradfords are never outside during the daytime, and that all their windows are covered? You've seen those creepy horror movies just like I have. Don't all these coincidences sound familiar? Nico rolled his eyes. Maybe they work at night, Isabel. I don't know. I'm sure there's a logical explanation. Nico, that kid hasn't come out in the daylight even once since they moved in almost a month ago. Remember when we moved here, the first thing we did out was check out the neighborhood for kids our age. You and Grady were best friends by the end of our first week. Remember? Isabel asked. Yeah, I do remember that, but the kids are just shy, and that doesn't make them monsters. You know, we could go over there and introduce ourselves, but let's just wait a day or so and see what happens. Okay, but I think something very weird is happening here. She leaned in to whisper in Nico's ear. Maybe it's even something spooky, and I think you've forgotten how to use your imagination. That's okay. Is You've got enough imagination for both of us, Nico said. Isabel looked annoyed and a little hurt. She sighed and went back to her room. Chapter 3. The next few days were a blur of activity as school began and everyone was busy settling into the new routines. The first morning at the bus stop, all the kids watched the Bradford house to see if Andrew would show. He didn't, and the Andrew mystery was soon lost in the shuffle of first day jitters and finding out who everyone's teacher was going to be. The days were still long, however, so there was some evening playtime left for the tree house and for lazing around. Time for finishing off the last of the wild blackberries. Talk turned once again to the mysterious Andrew Bradford and the latest sighting of his moonlight escapades. Theories were many and wild, but most focused on blood-sucking monsters of one kind or another. Chapter 4. One particular night, Nico, Isabel, Grady, and Jessica were playing a little twilight kickball with other kids from the neighborhood. Isabel nailed one straight over their heads and into the Bradford's yard. Everyone looked towards the house in stunned silence. Well, whispered Isabel bravely, I guess I'll have to climb over there and get it. We'll find out once and for all if he's really a werewolf, a vampire, or what. That's the case. It's getting dark. Let's wait until tomorrow, suggested Grady, kicking the toe of his sneaker into the ground and looking nervous. Jessica nodded, taking a step backward and looking at her watch. It's late, she mumbled. No, Isabel is right, Nico said, walking over and taking his sister's hand. I'll go with her, and we'll see what's going on. Nico and Isabel shared a glance they'd shared many times before. They would always be there for each other, no matter what. The last of the evening light was fading fast as he cleared the fence that surrounded the Bedford's yard. They heard the familiar, high-pitched clattering of bats beyond the trees. The bats had begun their nightly hunt for food. They shared another glance. Was this a sign? They clutched each other's hands tightly and headed for the far side of the Bradford's property. There it is. Nico bent to retrieve the ball from between some shrubs. Then he turned and stared. Isabel was quickly walking away from it toward the opening sliding door on the patio. Isabel, come back! Just as she reached there sold a boy about their age appeared. Hi there, squeaked Isabel, and then she drew herself up straight and said firmly, You must be Andrew. I'm Isabel Lopez, and that chicken over there is my twin brother Nico. So much for royalty, grumbled Nico. Andrew seemed at a loss for words, but he finally managed a small hello. He didn't look like a werewolf or a vampire or any kind of monster at all. He did have a whole lot of freckles, and he was covered with clothing from head to toe on one of the warmest nights of the year, but there were no fur or bloody fangs anywhere. Sorry to bust into your yard like this, but our bell went over the fence and Isabel's voice trailed off. Nico yelled from where he stood. My sister wanted to see if you were a vampire since you never come out in the daytime. Isabel threw her hands over her face with embarrassment, but Andrew just started to chuckle. Then the chuckle turned into a very loud, long laugh. Well, you're honest, aren't you? Let me go get my mom and dad. They're probably wondering who I'm talking to. Then we can tell you all about the big mystery. Mr. and Mrs. Bradford appeared a moment later. After introductions, the Bradfords explained the reason their family followed a different schedule. Andrew had a condition called XP. The XP stands for Xeroderma pigmentosum. His skin and his eyes just can't tolerate light from the sun. He gets sunburned almost immediately, and it gets a long time to heal. Other than that, he's just like you in every way. This is why you might see us outside late in the evenings enjoying things that are more fun without the complications of sunlight, Mr. Bradford said. I'm pretty much a moonlight only guy, Andrew added. It can make meeting our kids in a new place a bit of a challenge, especially in the summer. So I'm glad you can. Isabel and Nico both smiled, and certainly at that. This was a lot to swallow all at once, but suddenly Isabel's face lit up. Hey Andrew, since it's dark now, you would like to meet some more of the neighbors. There's this really cool tree house and we play kickball and Isabel babbled excitedly while Andrew's parents nodded with approval. She and Nico led Andrew toward his new friends. As the week passed, the sun began to set earlier in the evenings. That used to be one of the sad parts of autumn for Isabel and Nico, but now they had a reason to look forward to it. Andrew Bradford's moonlight kickball games had become the treehouse attraction of the fall.